Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to see all of you.
Yes, thank you for being here with us tonight. My name is Maliika Nia-Imani. I am a dark-skinned femme wearing glasses and red braids with a cream-colored sweater.
Hi, my name is. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
My pronouns are she and they.
Hi, everyone. My name is Blaise Sparda. I am a dark skinned, femme presenting person with curly red hair, and I am staying in Lenape, also known as Brooklyn. And I'm happy to see all of you. Oh, yeah, my pronouns are they, them. Forgot to mention that.
Thanks, guys. Hi, everyone. My name is Malanya Graham, and I'm part of Dreamseed Collective. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a dark brown skinned black femme with a pink afro and a printed head wrap and a red silk top. I'm presenting from the unceded land of Lenape, which is also known as Brooklyn. And I'm so happy that you guys are engaging with our project tonight.
Thank you, everybody. So I'll jump right in and tell you about Dreamseed Collective. Um, we formed Dreamseed Collective with the belief that healing is found within community and found within art. We are creating the Dreamseed Oracle Deck with a project release date of 2022. We are inspired by holistic wellness practices and Black, Indigenous, POC, queer ancestors. This deck will be a living symbol of our beautiful blossoming in the midst of mounting violence. Oh, there's a lag.
Can we get our presentation slides? Thank you.
Can we get the next slide? Yeah, this slide is good. And can we have Sparta on the screen? Okay, you can take it away, Sparta.
You're on mute.
All right, so this is an open studio video. Can we play this, please? Tarot card reading is a practice of using tarot cards to gain insight into the past, present, or future by formulating a question, then drawing and interpreting the cards. The fool here is carrying his belongings to go on his journey, but he's also looking up, meaning he's optimistic and he has full opportunity. But in the same vein, he's also walking off a cliff, which is a subtle allusion to being mindful of where you're treading as you travel in your life. The Two of Cups here represents your relationships, whether romantic or deeply personal. Ace of Swords represents ideas coming in. This movement toward greater representation and its reconstructing tarot is reinventing and reclaiming our ability to perceive our narratives.
Like, what does it mean to transform something that was initially for an elitist group?
The ways that Europeans have, like as Marta said, like bastardized a lot of our, and when I'm saying our, I'm talking about Black people.
Yep.
A lot of our art and like a lot of our symbolism, and also like taken away from us, the things that we traditionally use to survive and also to connect with our own spirits, and like who, but like, Black people and darker skinned people were like not permitted leisure, Like, one, we don't need permission. And two, like, even though it's going to be an uphill battle, we are a reflection of like what's necessary in society. Like whatever project or whatever situation it is, you're always going to find a community.
Okay, yes. So this is our open studio video, and we were highlighting how we can incorporate tarot into our spaces for healing and for intentional work. We were speaking with our collective to give intentional work in a way that is accessible to community, as well as not intense, something that's palpable and open for everyone.
During our open studio, we walk through the history of tarot. Oh, thank you. We walk through the history of tarot and its connection to the Black diaspora, and we also walk through a communal altar making where we had some of our Black queer ancestors on our altar, some things that people might usually put on their altars, like candles, seashells, a candle, maybe something from the earth, things that represent our elements and our connection to our greater spirits. Thank you. Can we move to the next slide? Yes, Seed Table Talks. Thank you. Yes, so our Seed Table Talks was our programming throughout the year, and it's a play on words of Jada Pinkett's Red Table Talks, which is basically online presentations and talks with people who were interested in different indigenous and African practices, African spiritual practices. This flyer was for our tarot and the Black experiences with Jesse Jumanji and Sparda. Sparda, do you want to give a little bit of info about this Seed Table Talk that you did with our guests?
Yes. So one of the most important things we covered with Jesse Jumanji and Courtney Alexander is the importance of seeing Blackness as something that is highlighted and empowered rather than something that's in the background. A lot of decks or a lot of tarot history has been about, a lot of tarot history has been about appropriation. And along with Jesse Jumanji and Courtney Alexander, their decks exemplify Black creativity, Black power, and Black fluidity in their work.
It was also important to us during this talk to point out that tarot doesn't have to be a gendered experience. A lot of the decks are extremely gendered, including a lot of the cards. And a lot of people who are interested in tarot are Black, gender nonconforming, and trans people. So a lot of times our community will feel left out from this experience. So that's why it was also very important to us to have this talk.
One of my favorite parts of this was when Jesse and Courtney shared their process in making the decks. They shared, how it was a transformative and spiritual experience. They both came from different sides of the table, where Jesse used a lot of collage and digital research to create their deck, and Courtney Alexander made paintings for each card. So that was really cool. And the next slide should be a video, an excerpt of the Seed Table Talk. I'm not sure if we'll be able to play.
If I don't get to accomplish anything else, I need to make this project the absolute best thing that I can possibly make it, And so I made Dust to Onyx more than I even promised it to be when I initially launched the project. It was supposed to be some card decks in a tuck box. But, then, I wrote the book and put the top shelf everything into the pack and designed my own packaging. I'm like, I always wanted to do packaging design. So I was like, okay, I became my own favorite and best project. I got to do all of the things that I had been scrambling to get people to hire me to do, and so Dust to Onyx gave so much to me. And even in that sort of technical process of creating the deck, it was still a spiritual journey. I was coming home from work. I was I had finally found a new job. I was coming home at my altar, doing my rituals and stuff, getting in with my ancestors. I was still having these dreams. I was still in preparation of stepping into this new phase because, spirit was essentially it wasn't just about, oh, I need to get this money. It was this is an absolutely new way of living that this project is bringing me into.
So if anything, I think tarot has enhanced all of my relationships. And once people have witnessed the journey from like the conception to the birth of the tarot and how my life has changed throughout this process. And I think a lot of people respect it and are more so interested in figuring out ways to align themselves spiritually and to be just more abundant and more aligned in their spirituality.
So this next seed table talk was hosted by Maliika, and it was called Adornment, the Body as an Altar. And the guests were Sol Diaz of Soelia NYC and V of Black Queer Magic. Maliika, do you want to share some of the inspiration behind this talk?
Yes, absolutely. So as someone who is a jeweler and a metalsmith, and also queer and also Black, a lot of times we are in this field, there's not a lot of representation. So hosting a talk with other Black and POC queer people that are also metalsmiths and also extremely spiritual was one of my inspirations for this talk. We spoke about the healing properties of different crystals and different metals. And we spoke about how jewelry can be an inspiration and also a way to represent yourself in the world.
I have one thing to add. One of my favorite parts of that talk was speaking on how we function in our bodies as a holy and a sacred space, and carrying that energy into like the work that we do. So that was something that I enjoyed a lot.
Yes, V and Soul were extremely inspiring when they were talking about the transference of energy through jewelry and through metal, and always creating with love and inspiration. And they were extremely inspiring.
Yes, I love that there was a Caribbean connection in the whole room that evening, since Sol is from Honduras and V is from Jamaica. So it was really great to talk about the inspiration behind adornment and how we connected to our Caribbean ancestors specifically. Can we have the next slide, please?
I have a small studio called Nia-Imani Studios where I experiment with photography, film, and also more recently metalsmithing, which is why I invited both of you to join in this talk.
My name is Sol. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am the owner and founder of Soelia, and what we do at Soelia is explore indigenous futurism and experimental metalsmithing.
I go by V, and I have a small business called Black Queer Magic. And that is my artist hub. That is where I experiment with different kinds of jewelry, design, and jewelry making.
We're creating a legacy. Even if these spaces don't want us in there, we're paving and we're cultivating for the future.
I wanted people to experience the healing that comes with being able to put that puzzle together and to show it off and say, yeah, man, I mean, like that. You know, like that, there's so much power there. And I was shut down. And so I started creating my own series. I said, no, I can be choosy and say, no, I honor and respect myself and my communities. And I'm not going to do this just because capitalism or performative activism. That's not the type of time I'm on.
And also very healing for me because a lot of times, you know, I'll say that I am a jewelry worker and a metalsmith, and you know, it'll just be like people think it's just like a physical thing, and it's not. It is incredibly spiritual and incredibly healing and important for, I think, our healing from what I'm hearing and like a lot of other people.
So this one was called Hoodoo and Tarot for Black Trans Healing, and we connected the different types of divination for Black healing. And Maliika, do you want to share some feedback from this talk?
Yes, thank you. This talk was with two herbalists and another person who was deeply involved in hoodoo and was from the South, also both Black and queer. And we had, I think, about 30 guests who were extremely interested in what they had to say and the conversation that we were facilitating. Saray grew up in the South, and he was actually raised Christian, which was something that we all found interesting, but he's also deeply involved in hoodoo practices. And he was explaining the connection between Christianity and Black hoodoo practices and how deeply they were intertwined, and also how tarot, the practice of tarot, was intertwined with the Black hoodoo practices. And I thought that the way that he kind of broke down all of the systems was very interesting.
Once I found the language of hoodoo, I was like, oh, like, so I've been doing this all my life. You know,
I come from people who, first of all, are clairvoyant first and foremost. I think that for me, hoodoo too is an alternate reading of Christianity.
Rather, there's some church within me, or there's like a spirit within me. There's something still outside of, state violence or these confines of these institutions.
I experienced homophobia and transphobia in the church. I experienced those things in the world. It's hard to say where hoodoo begins and ends. But I will say that at this point, like, all of my friends have, some sort of spiritual practice that's important to them.
Being able to pick up practices around protection and cleansing and things like that has really just come from a lot of community building. What has also happened is, like, I've actually gotten involved in lineage work. And so doing genealogy work with my family.
We're in a living tradition. We're influencing the tradition with our choices that we make today. Playing cards are more traditional in hoodoo than tarot. Tarot is a new age practice.
I definitely can share a map of like all of the different enslaved, folks in rebelling across the globe, and how a lot of those folks were using spiritual practices, not just
as a trans person, as a visibly trans person, as somebody who needs testosterone to survive, as someone who experiences medical transphobia and social transphobia. People don't want me to make no type of money. They want me to literally like be in the fucking salt mines. My own knowledge of spirit and the way the spirit has guided me has allowed me to not live like that, to live a life that's more abundant.
Awesome. Yeah, that was one of my favorite seed table talks because I got to learn a lot about hoodoo and how tarot can be used as a divination practice, specifically for Black, queer, and trans people, and hearing their stories about how their lives changed as they practiced hoodoo was really special to me, and something that I feel like I would love to look forward to in the future. Sparda, did you have any feedback on the talk? I know you were super involved, with the commentary and talking about their spiritual growth.
Yes. One thing that really stuck out to me was Saray's point that hoodoo is just an alternate telling of Christianity and an alternate way to view Genesis. And the way we've seen the Bible beforehand has always been a tool of oppression. And to see that hoodoo is transformed in this thing that frees us, that opens us, that heals us, was remarkable. And to know that we created that as a community was very impactful to me.
Yeah, felt like we were creating like a whole family there, especially since they were talking about how their community, their friendship circle, and even romantic circles were changing, as they were embarking on their journey.
I've been doing this all my life.
Can we get the next slide, please? So this talk was hosted by Blaise, myself, and Jamisa Hawthorne of Jamha Herbals. And they are a practitioner of herbalism. And we just talked about how herbalism and tarot are connected because there are actually a lot of tarot cards that feature herbalism. So the next slide is a video of some excerpts, but Blaise, do you want to say anything beforehand?
I would say having the addition of
You went on mute, Sparda.
Can everyone hear me now? Okay. See, being within the intersection of tarot and herbalism made me realize that like tarot is very much a tool, but is very much like something that can branch out and help us in other ways in our spirituality. Divination is just like a small, minute part of what your spiritual journey can be, but it informs so much of what you can do. So a lot of what I remember about that Seed Table Talk was about acknowledging the knowledge that you have, acknowledging what you have to learn more of through tarot and herbalism.
Yes, and I guess as we get the video prepped, I also remember towards the end of the conversation, beyond like kitchen herbs like cinnamon and like thyme and things like that, where we can begin herbalism, we also spoke about like using shrooms and using ayahuasca and having like ritual and connecting to our ancestors in that way. So we can play the video now.
Mugwort is a really beautiful dream herb, really beautiful for like inspiration and muse work, connecting to your intuition, strengthening your divinatory skills. So
the first herbs that I learned about were nettle and oat straw. So like what were the basics that you learned?
I think oat straw and nettles definitely were in the beginning because they're such nutritive plants. They're super safe for the most part. Like it's always great to begin working with herbs that you feel like you can just play with and you can experiment with. It's like kitchen witching was kind of like all the first herbs and where I began like playing with plants.
I was just about to say that as a note, like my first exposure into herbalism was kitchen witchery and like a lot of have you guys ever heard of an intention jar where you bless your herbs and put your intention in, and it's the spell jar? I did a lot of those, and most of the language stayed the same even when you use it for homeopathic like reasons. I know lavender is calming, and that's still the same for spell work too.
I similarly like to play with herbs on my altar and use them with the intention, like oat straw for abundance. If I'm making myself a jar of oat straw tea for abundance and just for that reassurance and connection piece, I'll make sure to pour them some too. Or if I need some speed behind some action, I'll add some cayenne powder or some cinnamon to sort of spice things up and heat things up.
I also really enjoyed that we got into what the meaning of each herb was, so people can have that for their own knowledge.
Yeah, I feel like we had so much engagement. Like it was truly one of the most intergenerational seed table talks that we did. There were, I think there was an elder who tuned in from like the mountains of Mexico to like talk about their experience with magic shrooms. There was a young femme who talked about their experience with like, or rather transition from like kitchen or herbalism to like community herbalism, sharing salves and teas and things like that. And Maliika is also an herbalist for local communities. So that was really great to learn about.
Yeah, it was an amazing workshop, and I really loved how we talked about how tarot and herbalism interconnected, because a lot of these spiritual practices are for the community, especially herbalism, like it's for the earth, from the earth, literally. So it's meant to be shared and it's meant to be, given freely.
Thank you. We can go to the next slide. Awesome. So another part of our project this year was a community partnership with the Griot Circle. And the Griot Circle is an all-queer group of Black and Brown elders living abundantly and in freedom. That is, I believe, their mission statement, which is awesome. We can go to the next slide, which is when, oh, it has their mission statement there. All LGBTQ elders of color living a just and abundant life. So this was one of our first meetings with them, and it was amazing. They called it a coffee talk. They have it, I believe, once every month. And meeting these elders was like really fulfilling. A lot of them are Caribbean, so it was like, you know, a lot of jokes passed back and forth. We got to learn a lot about their young queer lives and like what they went through coming out, their experiences with their families, things like that.
Yes, it was a lot of trading stories, a lot of them telling stories, giving advice. It was a beautiful time with them and a lot of trading knowledge too. You know, a lot of the people who are part of your circle had never been interested in tarot or been exposed to tarot. So it was a great time introducing them to that too. We can go to the next slide. Yes, this is our flyer for Tarot Talk, the first tarot workshop that we did with Griot Circle, where we talked again with them about the connection to Black and Brown people to tarot, the history of tarot, and how we can use divination and tarot in our everyday lives. We can go to the next slide. Sparda, do you want to tell us what's going on here?
So here we are giving readings to our elders. And at first, I will say they were a bit hesitant. There is a lot of stigma with tarot that they might tell a future that they didn't want to know. But over time, after like speaking to us and having individualized readings, they were open to the wisdom that tarot has to offer and the gentleness that it actually has. It felt really good to provide an open space of acknowledgement and healing for them, because I don't want to share what exactly happened, but one of the members was going through a rough patch, and for them to be in a space of vulnerability with us was so healing, and it felt like the most important thing about the intergenerational work that we're doing here.
I think what's really significant about this is that a lot of them I guess displayed some hesitancy and maybe a little bit of some fear because of the widespread understanding that tarot can like tell your future. But I think what we made apparent through like a teaching, a slideshow that Sparda gave, and also in the experience of the readings and looking through the tarot cards, was really that tarot is about empowerment and sharpening your intuition rather than telling or like predicting a solid future. It's really just to like really take your future in your own hands and reflect on it each day and really see like how you're building your ideal life. So the next slide is some images from our dream shoots, which was, I feel like the whole project is awesome, but the dream shoots were really where we got to engage with community one-on-one and see how they really connected and embodied each card. And so far, I believe we have about 15 cards, so we'll be editing that, maybe a little bit more models actually, but we can go to the next slide and we'll just be showing you some images. Yeah, perfect. So we decided to show these cards in order of the tarot deck. So the first card is the Hermit, and this is our friend Rumi and their dog Baba. The Hermit card, the Hermit card is the start of the journey in the tarot deck. Sparda, do you want to explain, the whole there's a storytelling aspect to tarot cards. So the emerging one is also called the Fool. So we decided to use the emerging one as like a more uplifting title for the card. You can go ahead, Sparda.
So one thing we need to recognize when we receive the Fool card is that we're given the abundant opportunity to be what we desire and start our journeys with happiness and joy. The Fool is engaged with like all the opportunity within themselves and is like fueled by the power within them. It also comes with a bit of naivete because this is a very youthful card, but nonetheless, because they're so willing to move forward and they're so willing to embark on their journey, they're blessed with so much experience. So it's a very good card to have when you first see it. Can I have the next slide? Okay, the Magician. So the Magician is all about alchemy and being a self-created person, but it's also about trickery and how you can be around sleight of hand. The Magician is about using all your ample resources and all the things that you're capable of doing to make magic. So if you've ever been seeing your mom or someone who's very close to you make something out of nothing, this is very much the card for it. Can I have the next slide? So I think we're running out of time here. Can we just show the next slides? This is the High Priestess, modeled by yours truly. This is the Emperor. This is the Hierophant. These are the Lovers. This is Strength. The Hermit. The Wheel of Fortune. Justice. Suspension, also known as the Hanged Man, but we would prefer to use suspension here. Death. One is Temperance. This is the Moon. This is the Sun, also seen as our print that we're doing for the Gathering Create this year. Next slide, please. This is Judgment. And finally, but not least, we have the Universe. Right. So these are all major arcana cards or the trump cards of the deck. They are the chapters in your story, and think of the minor arcana as the paragraphs in those chapters.
Right. Thank you guys for watching our presentation. And we hope that you keep in touch and follow the project. Our Instagram is Dreamseed_collective, and the deck will be released next year in 2022. Thank you.